Ultimate Black Panther #1 from Bryan Hill and Stefano Caselli dropped this week. And obviously it's following up to Ultimate Spider-Man from Jonathan Hickman. And Doc, I don't know about you, but I didn't know how to feel about this comic book. In fact, my feelings have been changing over the last 2 or 3 days.
I'm feeling a little bit some kind of way about this, similar to the way I felt about Ultimate Spider-Man #1. While I enjoyed it, it was missing something, and I feel like it was much more of an issue 0 than an issue #1.
What's interesting about this is, Ultimate Spider-Man really is all about the differences between Spider-Man and his very small contained universe, while this one is a little bit bigger, where you're starting to see some of the changes that the maker has made. Maybe not so much with Black Panther, because for the most part, T'Challa's not much different than the regular Marvel 616.
He bears a strong resemblance to both the 616 Black Panther and the MCU Black Panther. And a lot of the beats of this, it's stuff that'll appeal to the people that have become more familiar with Black Panther because of his presence in the MCU. And I thought that was a good start to it.
Well, let's talk about the comic book itself. Let's start with the art from Stefano Caselli. In my opinion, this is probably the best artist that Bryan Hill has ever worked with. I do quite enjoy Juan Ferre. He's probably the best artist he'd worked with until this point. There's really good designs in here, very familiar stuff, but there are a lot of accents of gold and stuff that we haven't seen really in the Black Panther universe. And he does amazing stuff with faces. And the visual storytelling is basically on point. It looks really good.
I generally enjoy Stefano Caselli's art, and I was not disappointed whatsoever whenever I picked this up. Well rendered, the line work was excellent. Honestly, I believe that, Bryan Hill has been sometimes saddled with less than stellar artists. And this time around, he got one that's definitely in that, kind of top 10, top 20.
Now, I did mention earlier that as far as T'Challa goes, he's kind of the same T'Challa. There's not a whole lot of difference between them. There are some small, subtle differences around the character. Most notably, he's married to Okoye, who normally is the leader of the Dora Milaje. Now she's like a retired general of the Dora Milaje. And now she's the Queen of Wakanda. I thought that was pretty interesting. We also have his father, T'Chaka, is not dead, at least not yet. So I thought that was pretty cool. It was one of the things I was actually more excited about in this one. Wakanda is truly a hermit kingdom at this point. They have not let their presence be known to the outside world, despite things kind of spiraling down, because we do have this version of Moon Knight creeping in on their territory, where it's not really Moon Knight. It's a character called Rod and a character called Khonshu that make up Moon Knight. So there are some changes around T'Challa, whereas T'Challa himself might not be different because they couldn't take his origin away like they did with Spider-Man.
It's T'Challa in every way that you really need him to be, so that he feels familiar, but with just enough difference so that you're not asking yourself, why am I reading this, instead of just reading the 616 version. And I feel like that was probably a smart decision to draw me in and to intrigue me here.
One of the things that's definitely new, at least I'm almost certain that it is, when he's talking to his father, he's having these dreams, and his father's like, well, if you want information on your dreams, you need to go to the Vodu Khan, which I've never heard that name before. I believe this is a new creation for this particular version of this Ultimate Black Panther. And they're led by this like high priestess that has a very distinct robe on. But there's a very not friendly relationship between T'Challa himself and the Vodu Khan. He does not believe in them, but they want to have a little bit of say and power as far as what Wakanda do. And she's also warning him that there are people on the outside that are starting to incur into their territory that he needs to be looking out for.
It was a interesting addition. It kind of reminds me of the Bene Gesserit in Dune. The female mystic groups in a lot of science fiction. That's where it seems like it was inspired by. I like that addition, having a mystical group of people that are sort of kind of advisors to the throne that may have ulterior motives. I like that. It's a thing that I haven't
juxtaposed
seen
to the Kingdom of Wakanda itself, which is so technology driven.
And that was always the thing with the Black Panther as a character. He is a mystic character from a country that is built on technology. There's a juxtaposition between even their own leader their king, their protector, and the nature of their culture and their state. Bringing a little bit more of that in through the addition of this other group here is probably going to be something that's really going to intrigue me and get me to come back.
While T'Challa's on the throne, there's a couple of guys that are out there. He witnesses the attacks of Moon Knight on some of the outer villages. They come back to give him the information, and they want to actually advise him. And he says, I don't take advice from spies, which I thought was kind of a dick move. He kind of comes off as a bit of a jerk in this comic book, but it also highlights a bit of confrontation between T'Challa and Shuri, who seems like she's some type of an advisor, but whose allegiances seem to be heavily leaned towards the Dora Milaje in creating technology and helping them to wage war rather than being truly in her brother's corner.
I like it. Now she's portrayed here as in charge of the Dora Milaje, but also the one kind of designing their weapons. It's kind of exploring the Wakandan military industrial complex to some degree. Also, not something that we've historically done with the character that has a lot of intriguing story possibilities in a country like Wakanda.
Because she would like to immediately go out to war. She's like, we need to go face these guys. And T'Challa's like, I would like to be a little bit more pragmatic here, and let's wait and see what happens, because we need more information before we can actually go out there and fight these people.
It is a unique take on T'Challa, and I like the more restrained T'Challa that they're showing here. He's not really quick to anger. He might be actually a little too slow to anger.
The other big thing that happens in here, and I wasn't expecting this actually until issue number 3, Doc, because that's when we were told that the new versions of Killmonger and Storm would show up, and we were told there were going to be a couple. We have another one of these attacks by the agents of Khonshu. I'll be honest, that's the only thing as far as like design-wise that I really don't like. They look like they're robots with circle faces, but I imagine there might be guys underneath it. They're attacking a village. It turns out there's 10 of them who are going to shoot a little kid. I don't know why you need 10 soldiers to take out a child, but I think it's supposed to be a big moment. And then we see Killmonger show up, and he kind of takes them out. The reinforcements were coming in here, and he says, my love, give them a hug. Or it's some type of greeting, and then she hits them with a lightning bolt and destroys their aircraft, which I thought was a kind of a cool moment. Obviously, that was Storm. And then he throws like an axe, which is acting as Mjolnir, and just comes right back to him.
Definitely has some really cool moments, and that's what I was alluding to before. Obviously, there's going to be some connection between Killmonger and the Black Panther, but I'm betting it was more along the lines of Killmonger disagreeing with the slow to act nature of T'Challa, and that's why he's kind of gone out on his own with apparently his love, Storm.
They don't call her Storm here. They call her the Wind Rider.
We saw Storm kind of in silhouette. We didn't really get to see her yet, so maybe that's what we're waiting for on issue 3.
Do you think her name's going to be Storm, or do you think it's going to be Wind Rider?
I think that they're going to call her Wind Rider, and then somebody's going to call her Storm at some point. So
they certainly made an impression. That was kind of a cool moment. Like I said, I thought it was coming in issue 3 where they show up on the cover, but this is actually when they show up in this first one. And then by the end, everything starts happening. We've kind of laid the foundation of what this comic book is. We have the Black Panther is on like a floating platform. His father is with him, and then there's another priestess who I thought was with the Voodoo Khan.
Yeah, I did too.
And he's giving a speech about his country and how he's the Black Panther and all that kind of stuff. And next thing you know, the priestess opens up her jacket. She's a terrorist. She's some type of suicide bomber or whatever. T'Chaka sees what's happening, pushes his son off the platform, and takes the explosion himself, so she doesn't actually kill the Black Panther himself. She doesn't kill T'Challa, the king of Wakanda. She kills the former king of Wakanda, T'Chaka. And she says it's for Khonshu and for Ra. And that's where my confusion is. I was like, holy crap, the Vodu Khan's blowing him up. And then later on, he's like, I need to find the Vodu Khan. And then I look at the wardrobe or the robe itself. It's different. So it's clearly a different character. But they don't ever actually explain how this person or why they would be the other person on the platform.
I'm hoping that they explain it in an upcoming issue. But that was one moment where I felt a little lost.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting stuff. And apparently his Black Panther suit, because we do see the Black Panther in this comic book, unlike Spider-Man, as he's falling, he like hits a button or something. And apparently it's nanotech. And it's kind of like develops around him as he's falling and he lands on his feet. And then he decides we're going to war.
I do like his suit. It kind of has a very Tony Stark, Iron Man kind of feel to it. And all of this stuff with his father dying in an explosion, his uniform that kind of just like pops up around him, all of that stuff is what I meant early on when I said this feels like it's designed to appeal to people with familiarity with Black Panther from the movies.
I thought it was going to be kind of cool to have T'Chaka in there. I was like, that'd be a good element. I want to see how the relationship is. And they killed him off. Well, what the hell, man?
Yeah, well, you know, T'Chaka's there to get Uncle Ben. They just
Uncle Ben's not there to get Uncle Ben?
No, but Aunt May's there to get Uncle Ben.
So normally I would have reviewed this comic book, on my own, but I was out this week, so I decided to throw one in the worst of the week, not anticipating that it was going to be bad, but certainly with the knowledge that it could be bad. But I don't think that happened here, Doc.
No, I don't think so either. Obviously, it's far from the best comic book I've ever read. I mean, that's kind of a given. No, it's a very, very well written comic. It's one that has a lot of potential that I'm really looking forward to seeing what they're going to do with next. And I actually give this a recommend.
You're going to score it? You giving it 4.5 salami sandwiches out of 5?
I said I will. Well, let's see. I'll say that I'll give it about a 4 out of 5.
8 out of 6, something like that.
I'd like to see Bryan Hill do a little bit more with where he's going. I'd like to see a little more clarity in some of the things. And I felt like the one thing that this did suffer from was a little bit like Amazing or Ultimate Spider-Man. It felt a little bit, especially at times, like a 0 issue rather than a number 1. But by the time it was over and we got to the end of the comic, it had kind of redeemed itself and did feel like a number 1.
Definitely recommend this one. I think it's a pretty good start. I don't think it's quite as exciting as Amazing or Ultimate Spider-Man because they're not really messing with the character here like they are with that one. You know what I mean?
Exactly. I'll say that this is probably the best thing I've ever had to review for Worst of the Week, without a doubt.
Maybe better than Predator versus Wolverine?
Yes.
All right, there we go. The best one ever in the history of this, Doc. Now, we've been doing this for a while. If people are enamored with Doc and all the things that he says, there's more than this. There is a Patreon tier dedicated to you and me, and we throw a little jib in there as well, Doc, where we do the unfiltered version of this review as well as the conversation we do this week, and we do a Q&A and all that kind of fun stuff. If you want more, Doc, there's one place to get it, and that's over on the Patreon.
Come get more of me. I have plenty to go around.